Facebook blocks a pro-police posting from being boosted, saying it was political and focused on sensitive social issues. Republican Adam Kinzinger says there are Americans and then there are Trump supporters. Plus, the Senate prepares to vote on an infrastructure bill that no one has read. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is the 13-Minute News Hour.
God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. If you're new to the show, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to start with Facebook because they're at it again, just like big tech, pushing censorship and this idea that they were somehow ordained to be the arbiters of misinformation. You know, back in the old days, people could debate and discuss, talk about things and figure out for themselves what they believed and didn't believe. They didn't need some corporation to come in and say, this is the truth, this is a lie. And we know that the truth is only what the left wants you to believe because they control big tech. Well, here is another example, folks, because big tech is going to keep doing it unless we fight back. Now, Facebook took a pro-police ad and stopped it from being boosted. And here's the story. The Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police wanted more people to know about hero East Peoria officer Jeffrey Bieber, so it planned to pay Facebook extra for a boost in distribution of its post, according to a report. But the social networking giant rejected the police group's request, citing sensitive social issues connected with the ad that could spark controversy, the Journal Star of Peoria reported. Sensitive social issues. Give me a break. This police association made a posting honoring a particular officer as their Officer of the Year. They made the posting and then they went to boost it so they could get to a larger audience. And Facebook said, nope, you're dealing with sensitive social issues. And here's more. Ed Wojcicki, executive director of the police group, told the newspaper he couldn't believe Facebook would reject a tribute to a police officer. The way we see it is, Facebook thinks it's wrong to honor a brave police officer who suffered serious wounds while protecting his central Illinois city. How is that remotely political? Wojcicki asked, according to the Journal Star. Back in February, Officer Bieber managed to fatally shoot an assailant despite having been stabbed by the suspect multiple times during a traffic stop, the newspaper reported. So, this incident happened back in February, and then in July, the association decided to name Bieber their Officer of the Year. And that's when they put up the post. And you can see the post here. In it, they talk about Bieber, his background, what he's done. They talk about the banquet where they're going to honor him. And then they talk about the incident. Never, anywhere does it get political, name legislation, talk about elections, or anything like that. And yet Facebook blocked it from being boosted because they said it was political and focused on sensitive issues. This ad content has been correctly disapproved for violation of Facebook advertising policies and guidelines. Facebook wrote in a message to the police group, as per policy, your ad may have been rejected because it mentions politicians or is about sensitive social issues that could influence public opinion, how people vote, and may impact the outcome of an election or pending legislation. But Wojcicki said Facebook's response made no sense to him. Our press release mentioned no politicians and has nothing to do with any election or pending legislation, he said. For Facebook to suggest that seems like a huge stretch and could be a signal that it wants to block good news about police. So in a follow-up, Facebook has now come out and said, you know what? Well, maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe the Police Officers Association put their information in wrong and we're willing to work with them. But here's the main point, is that policing should be left to the police. We don't need big tech policing the internet for so-called misinformation, which always seems to skew against conservatives, while the left can say and do whatever they want online, and those posts go unchecked. They just keep going and keep going, while other people are blocked and banned and throttled. Leave the policing to the police. Leave social media to the users. No profanity, no hate speech, but give me a break on this misinformation and influencing elections. That's what people do. every time they share an opinion, it's to influence someone. That's dialogue. That's debate. That's discourse. Leave that to people and not big tech. All right, next, let's talk about Republican Adam Kinzinger. But first, if you're new to the show or haven't subscribed yet, regardless of platform, just search out my name, hit that subscribe button, make sure notifications are turned on. That way you can follow the show and help us grow. Okay, so let's talk about Republican Adam Kinzinger, because he was on ABC's This Week program yesterday talking about the January 6th committee that Pelosi put together and basically handpicked the people who are on it. She has two Republicans on the committee, and that's it. Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, the most never Trump Republicans in the whole House of Representatives. Those are the representatives on that committee. So Kinzinger, he was on ABC talking about the committee and talking about this push and maybe that they'll force Republicans to testify. Here's part of the exchange.
Would you support subpoenas to the Republican leader in the House and to Jim Jordan?
I would support subpoenas to anybody that can shed light on that. If that's the leader, that's the leader. If it's anybody that talked to the president that can provide us that information, I want to know what the president was doing every moment of that day.
Isn't it interesting how there are all these questions out there about why the police weren't properly staffed? What about the advanced warning, the intelligence, the things they knew? Why wasn't anything done about that? But all Kinzinger cares about is going after Donald Trump. And then, just to show you how journalism has gone downhill, the host of the ABC program, Jonathan Karl, he leads in with this clip of GOP conference chair Elise Stefanik saying that Nancy Pelosi bears some of the responsibility. And then Karl goes off with this.
I mean, my God, they've protected Donald Trump from blame here, and they're blaming Nancy Pelosi for the fact that Trump supporters invaded the Capitol and including her office. Can you explain to me what they're talking about?
That's journalism today. And it is so obvious that Karl has picked a side and he is pushing the left-wing agenda. Nancy Pelosi does bear some responsibility. She needs to answer questions on why things weren't done in advance to get ready for this because they knew it was coming. But Karl, he keeps everything focused on Trump. And here's Kinzinger jumping in with a response.
Yeah, to me it's mind-blowing, and it basically shows the desperation to try to derail this. Now, if you think about the different audiences that exist, there's the audience of the American people, and then there's the audience of Donald Trump. All Donald Trump needs to see is that you're making a defense, no matter how nonsensical that defense is.
There's the audience of the American people and the audience of Donald Trump. What in the world is he talking about? As if Trump supporters aren't real Americans. As if you voted for President Trump, you're not an American. Give me a break. According to Kinzinger, the only people who are Americans are those who voted for Joe Biden. And this is partly why this committee is such a bogus farce, because the only Republicans on it, again, are Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. People like Jim Jordan, Jim Banks, that were promoted, put on the committee by Kevin McCarthy, rejected by Nancy Pelosi. So you have a bunch of Democrats and Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney. How is that for a fair committee? And you can see that their focus is 100% on Donald Trump. All right, next, let's talk about the infrastructure bill. They finally came to an agreement, came to a bill over the weekend, printed it out on the Senate side, and it is massive. We're talking $1 trillion in infrastructure spending. That's just the Senate side. We'll get to the other in a bit. Over 2,700 pages, and they haven't even read it. It shows Washington at its worst, and here's the story. U.S. senators finalized details on Sunday of a sweeping $1 trillion plan to invest in roads, bridges, ports, high-speed internet, and other infrastructure, with some predicting the chamber would pass the bipartisan legislation this week. The massive infrastructure package, a goal that has eluded Congress for years, is a top legislative priority for Joe Biden and would represent the largest investment in U.S. infrastructure in decades. Senators said the 2,702-page bill included $550 billion in new spending over 5 years for items such as roads, rail, electric vehicle charging stations, and replacing lead water pipes on top of $450 billion in previously approved funds. 2,702 pages, and it just became available on Sunday. And now the talk from Chuck Schumer and others is that it's going to be voted on this week. It's physically impossible to read through this bill and know what's going on. But that's the mess that's happening on the Senate side. And there's more because the House is going to come into play, and we're going to have to deal with those left-wing radicals like AOC and Tlaib and Omar. And here's more. I've got real concerns with this bill, Republican Senator Mike Lee said in a floor speech. All is not well with the way we spend money. It was not yet clear whether senators outside the bipartisan group that negotiated the bill will offer amendments that could pass and possibly upset the delicate coalition that was cobbled together. If the bill passes the Senate, it must be considered in the House of Representatives, where some Democrats have blasted it as too small, and the Democrat leadership has paired it with a $3.5 trillion human infrastructure bill to pour money into education, childcare, climate change, and other priorities. Wow. House members want to add another $3.5 trillion on top of this bill for so-called human infrastructure. And by the way, that's not a thing. There's no human infrastructure. That's just a cover to say, hey, you're doing an infrastructure bill, roads and bridges. We're going to put all this left-wing stuff in there too. Immigration, taxes, you name it, Green New Deal stuff, everything that they want, all their pet projects being thrown into this, and we're going to call it human infrastructure. And how are they going to pay for it? With massive tax increases, of course. It's just so bogus. Folks, we need to keep up with the roads, the bridges, the real infrastructure. But this bill has so much wasteful spending. Here are just two examples from Breitbart. The bill also requires the Congressional Budget Office to conduct a study on the enhanced unemployment benefits that came from the Democrats' $1.9 trillion coronavirus aid bill, also known as the American Rescue Plan. The legislation also requires the Secretary of Energy to conduct a study on the projected job losses and impacts from the Biden administration's cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline. So now, as a public service, I am now offering to save the government a ton of money because I'm going to do those studies right here, right now, and only charge them half of what they have in the bill. Study number 1. Here's my analysis. If you pay people to stay home, they don't want to go back to work. Boom, done. Study number 2. The results, the impact is 0 if you restart construction like it should be on the Keystone XL pipeline. There you go. I'll look up the address to send the invoice, and now we just saved a ton of money, and I made millions on 2 bogus studies. All right, so next, let's talk about what is going on in California, because the recall election is just a little over a month away, and the polls are tightening. A couple of weeks ago, the slight edge went to those who didn't favor a recall, and now it is dead even. And one of the leading contenders to replace Governor Gavin Newsom is Larry Elder. He is making a big splash out there. Here are some of his comments to Newsmax over the weekend.
He should be very, very afraid. As you pointed out, it's almost 50-50, right in the margin of error. And that's about 5-point change in favor of the recall just a couple of weeks ago. He gave a very feisty interview to a series of newspaper editorial boards just the other day. And he was very, very scared, very angry, very defensive because he couldn't defend his record.
So the polls are tightening. Public sentiment is moving away from Newsom. And there's a real possibility that we could end up with a new governor in September. Now, Elder hit on a ton of issues. The economy, the response to COVID, the degradation of the cities in California, the hostile environment that the Democrats are doing to business owners. People are leaving. California lost an electoral vote for the first time ever because people are leaving. And then Elder went into even more.
75%, believe it or not, of black boys in California cannot read at state levels of proficiency, and those levels aren't high. 50% of third graders cannot. 2/3 of black parents say they don't want to send their kids back to the Los Angeles school district, in part because they believe the worst teachers are there. Out of the 300,000 public school teachers, Carl, get this, it is estimated that at minimum 5% of them are bad teachers. That's 15,000. It takes almost an act of Congress to get somebody fired. Last year, 2 teachers were fired out of the 300,000.
It's just incredible. Right there, that issue should be enough to get rid of Gavin Newsom, to say, hey, we need to do things differently in California because we're going in the wrong direction, and we have been for a while now. People need to wake up, and maybe this is the wake-up call for them. Here's more from Elder.
Crime doesn't have a color. Homelessness doesn't have a color. The way this man shut down this state and caused untold people to lose their businesses doesn't have a color. The cost of living doesn't have a color. So common sense people, independents and Democrats, are steamed and they want to change.
So great comments from Larry Elder, and we'll see how things go. The recall election is scheduled for September 14th. That's when California residents will decide, do we keep him or do we get rid of him? And then on that same ballot, if the vote was to get rid of him, then they will be picking the successor right then, right there, same ballot, same day. Most people are undecided, but those who have picked, who have favored a candidate, Larry Elder is leading by a big margin. Good luck to him. I hope he pulls it out, and I hope the people of California see the light and go in a different direction. Folks, that's our show for today, but don't forget, if you're new to the show or haven't subscribed yet, regardless of platform, just search out my name, hit that subscribe button, make sure notifications are turned on. That way you can follow the show and help us grow. Okay, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate you being here. Our next show will be on Wednesday, same time. I'll see you then. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified. And here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-minute news hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.